Hey Dresden Files fans, today we are discussing Welcome to the Jungle, which is a very early on graphic novel in the Dresden Files series. And fun fact, Jim Butcher always envisioned the series as being animated or being in a graphic novel or a comic book. This story takes place before Stormfront, so we're very, very early on in the series. The story begins with Dresden investigating a very grisly scene outside of the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago. Authorities think that the scapegoat, or rather escaped gorilla, is named Mo, and they intend to destroy him for a crime that he didn't commit. But Murphy, being the awesome detective she is, finds a lot of holes in the story, mainly in how a gorilla would unlock his cage, commit a tragic act, and then lock himself back in the enclosure like nothing happened. So she calls Harry Dresden in to help investigate this. One of the first people that Dresden ends up talking to is a guy named Dr. Reese, and he is a very strong proponent of Mo's innocence. He's trying to help him out, and eventually Harry figures out that he's a decent guy. But Harry says that he's been wrong before, and then this triggers a flashback to his battle with Justin Dumourne, back when Justin Dumourne ensnared the other apprentice, Elaine Mallory. And we all know that this event happened and that it's important to Dresden and who he is as a wizard, but we don't get a lot of details, and that is the main reason why Welcome to the Jungle is important to the total canon. Dumourne's staff is a cobra, and his magic also takes the form of a snake. This keeps up with the overall theme of the graphic novel about how the world, aka the zoo, is full of dangerous monsters or animals. The researchers might be fond of the animals, and they also totally try to see the best in them. But they are wild animals, and they can revert back to their dangerous natural instinct anytime they need to. Harry talks to another researcher who describes the male gorillas as being very, very territorial and brutally capable of defending their families. Not gonna lie, this is a very good description of how Dresden is after the events and changes. He is extremely powerful and dangerous, and he's fiercely defensive of his family and his loved ones. The animals default to their nature, and Dresden might default to something unsavory later on. The magical community likes to act like it has rules and decorum, but practically speaking, it's eat or be eaten, and just don't get caught. Also, side note, wasn't Welcome to the Jungle the song that Molly Carpenter basically shrieked to in Battleground when her and a bunch of the magical baddies came out to try to fight Ethniu? I feel like that was on purpose. Harry mentions that he felt betrayed when Justin sent a demon, which we now know is actually he who walks behind, and that he had never before dreamed about the monster that was behind his own eyes. After triggering the sprinklers to use the water to cut off the magic compelling a bunch of big cats that are trying to eat him, think lions, not mister, Harry goes to Dr. Watson's office, and she has it warded pretty tight. Harry ends up taking a jar that has some blood in it, and she finds them on their way out and ends up threatening them. So Harry knows that she's a lot more fierce and dangerous than she originally let on. And in the beginning scene when she spills coffee on him on accident, it's probably so that he doesn't touch her or get too close and notice that she has a lot of magical energy going on. Harry takes the jar home to show Bob to be like, hey, what you know about this, because that's what Bob is good for. And Bob says it is for an Ascension spell. This spell draws enormous amounts of energy towards a person to make them more of what they are. A good person will become a saint or a similar figure like a Buddha, while a bad person will become a monster. This reminds me a lot of the Dark Hallow from Deadbeat. You know, when Cole was trying to do this exact same thing, but probably on a larger scale. Jim Butcher likes to foreshadow how major spells work. For example, in Blood Rights, the entropy curse used on the actresses in Arturo Genos's films is a baby version of what the Reds tried to do in Changes. And it also kind of reminds me of the spell that they were doing in Stormfront, you know, where Victor Sells was using lustful magic to power up things that literally ate somebody's heart out. Bob also identifies Dr. Watson as a Hecatian hag, an anthrophage that was part of the inner circle of the cult of Hecate. Hecate was the goddess of magic, the moon, doorways, and creatures of the night like heckhounds, ghosts, and spells. She witnessed Persephone's transition into the underworld and then helped search for her later. She isn't purely good or evil, and let's put our tinfoil hats or cheap headbands on for a second. If our own little Miss Demeter, Helen Beckett, is Demeter and Amanda, her daughter who is secretly asleep in a hospital under the protection of John Marcone, is Persephone, then there is a way that this group of hags could come back into play later to help Helen. There might be nothing there, but I still think that this could be important later on. We could also see her at the outer gates on either side, or having something to do with the mirror plot, since mirrors are kind of gateway in the magical world. But what gets me the most excited is that Hecate has 3 forms: the maid, the mother, and the crone, kind of like the fairy queens. Dresden takes out not 1, but 2 of these sisters using his magic to move physical objects since they are protected from magic directly. He also lets Mo have his revenge by taking out the 3rd hag. Mo was actually trapped inside his habitat as he witnessed everything going on for most of the story, when the Hags were taking people out and doing terrible things to them. And that must have been terrifying. Just seeing someone that you care about get ripped to shreds and not being able to do anything about it, I don't know how I would have handled that. What if his family had been targeted next? In contrast, Will, who's the research assistant, is terrified, and Dresden explains that humans go through stages of denial to write off their experiences and go through the heebie-jeebies as a coping mechanism. Let me say that again. If you've read the law, you know what the heebie-jeebies is. Instead of fighting back, they try to forget all the scary stuff exists and go into denial. The so-called monsters or animals face it head-on and usually get their hands dirty in the process. This distinction will probably come into play in the post-Battleground storyline, especially with the whole Trip Gregory thing demonstrating the power of denial and the heebie-jeebies. It's both a defense mechanism and propaganda. And I bet this is also a big part of why Molly was trying to use the Christmas gifts to hype up Harry as the Wizard of Chicago. Belief is power, and if people are in denial, then they don't contribute to your power base. This story does have a happy ending, but it also explains some things about Murphy in the first couple books. They're able to find evidence that the gorilla didn't hurt the mortals, and he's able to live out his days with his family. Murphy does get mad because she thinks that Harry decided to do the vigilante thing, which feeds into the distrust that she has for him in the early novels. Plus, at this stage of the story, she doesn't quite understand what she's dealing with. Yes, she understands that there's something going on with all the weird stuff that she has to deal with in SI, and her dad had to deal with it, so she knows that it's real, but she just doesn't know what she's getting herself into until book 3 or 4. Which makes me understand her character a lot more. I know in the beginning of the series she was very, very annoying. She was distrustful of Dresden. She was really just getting in the way. But as she was sort of led into the world and sort of figured out what she was dealing with, she did a lot better, and she was able to protect the people that she cared about and do her job. This was a cute adventure, and since I have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, it was free for me to spend the evening perusing. If you like Dresden Files content, don't forget to subscribe, and if you think I suck at this, leave me a comment down below and I'll try to suck better next time. Bye!